You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I'm really conflicted right now. I don't know which loss was worse. Monday's, when the Nets got blown out of the building and lost by 24, or yesterday, when you have an opportunity to tie the game late. You blew the lead. You were playing well all game yesterday until really like a quarter of the way through the fourth quarter. Then the Raptors came back. But even then, 102-99 Raptors. 15 seconds left in regulation. You have an opportunity to tie it. You have Joe Harris, one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. A guy who Sean Marks desperately wants to bring back, and rightfully so. Instead, Harris hands the ball off to Temple, and he fumbles it like he's an NFL running back. How on God's green earth do you fumble that? It was literally in your hands, and you dropped it. He did his best Ernest Biner impression. I just cannot believe that they lost that game. That is an inexcusable loss. That was a winnable game. I'm not even that upset that they blew the lead. They had the opportunity to tie it late, and Temple just fumbles it. And then afterwards, he takes the blame. He's trying to be noble about it. Of course you take the blame! Who else would take the blame? It's a shame, too, because Temple was non-existent on Monday. I mean, he was absolutely dreadful. But yesterday, he was playing great. He was the high man for the Nets with 21 points. Everyone would have forgotten about Game 1 if you had just held on to the ball. And I don't even know if the Nets would have been able to tie the game, but at least get a shot off. Oh my God, what an abysmal ending. I don't know which is worse. I seriously don't. At least with Monday, there was other stuff to go to. That game was over really quickly, so, okay, I could do other things. What was I going to do yesterday? The Nets are playing well, so I'm watching the game. And then they just pull the rug right out from under me. I mean, they really played well enough to win. Temple with 21, Joe Harris, Jared Allen, and Karis LeVert all had double-doubles. Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot had 17. Tyler Johnson had 12 off the bench. The Nets played well enough to win. Their perimeter defense was on point. The Raptors only shot 26% from beyond the arc. 9 for 35. But the Nets gave them the game. Not just with that turnover, but prior turnovers. The Nets had 6 points off turnovers. You know how many the Raptors had? 23. The Raptors made 8 turnovers. The Nets made 17. The Raptors were not playing well. But the Nets just decided, you know what, no, we don't want to win this game. You can win it, it's okay. Canadiens are known for their hospitality. We're going to be hospitable to you. And now, to make matters worse, Joe Harris is leaving the bubble for some kind of personal emergency. Look, I can't begrudge him for leaving if he really has an emergency, but this is a terrible time to do it. I mean, your team is down 2-0. At least tell us what it is. You know, with Tuukka Rask leaving, we knew what it was. His mental health was strained, and he wanted to be with his family. I just want an answer from Joe Harris. If one of his family members is sick, okay, fine. That's a valid reason to leave, but just give me the reason why you're leaving. I mean, the Nets have no chance without Harris. None. I have no idea who's going to fill that role. Like I said, he's one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. He shot 42.5% from beyond the arc this year. The Nets don't have anyone close to that. And he had 15 rebounds, too. I mean, he was all over the place making plays. It's kind of funny, he had the same number of rebounds as Jared Allen did. The center. The Nets are done. The Nets are going to get swept. There's no coming back from this. They're done. Their goose has been cooked. Way to make me look smart for saying that you could take a couple games. Really. And Jacques Vaughn, forget about it. He's done. He's not getting this job. You've got to at least have a competitive series. You've got to take a game or two. I don't see the Nets taking a game or two. I really don't. Now with Joe Harris leaving, they're going to get swept. But again, the Raptors weren't great. They got solid contributions from the mid-range and the interior. Fred VanVleet kept his great play up with a double-double. Kyle Lowry nearly had a double-double. Pascal Siakam had 19 points. Norman Powell off the bench had 24 points. Norman freaking Powell kills the Nets. I gotta start thinking about what I'm gonna do for the Nets off-season preview. I thought I'd have a little more time to think about that. Instead, their season's going to be over on most likely Sunday. So at some point that week, you'll get the Nets off-season preview. I just thought I'd have more time for it. You know, if you're going to lose respectably. Lose on a last-second shot that you contest, or you just miss a last-second shot of your own. Or, you know, you keep the game close, but you never really are able to overtake the Raptors. These have been 2 terrible losses. This is just so depressing. Why did I let myself get into the Nets? I wasn't into them all year. I was saying wait until next year. I told myself I wasn't going to care about what they did in the playoffs. Why did I let myself get invested in them? I mean, it's because I'm a diehard fan. That's why. But, man, I knew better than this. This is brutal. This is absolutely brutal. Moving on now to Jazz Nuggets. And Quinn Snyder did a great job in this game. He outcoached Mike Malone incredibly. I like Mike Malone. I think he's a really good coach. But Quinn Snyder is a better coach. And I don't just mean that in the context of yesterday. He just is the better coach. The Jazz really didn't do anything that differently offensively, but defensively, they keyed in on Jamal Murray. They didn't let him get going. One game after dropping 36 points, Murray only drops 14. I said yesterday that the Nuggets should get the ball out of Murray's hands. The Jazz would be expecting it. They should put the ball in Jokic's hands more. They really didn't. Murray had the ball a lot. They tried to get him going, and then he had to dish it out. The Nuggets didn't want him to. That wasn't their game plan. They wanted to play through Murray. I said yesterday that wasn't going to work. Believe it or not, I actually know a little bit about sports. I mean, the Jazz didn't get any offensive contributions from anyone other than their big four of Mitchell, Gobert, Ingles, and Clarkson. But defensively, Royce O'Neal played a great game. He actually almost had a triple-double. 9 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. He was guarding multiple positions. He was all over the place. He's a really good defender. He just needs to develop a little bit of an offensive game. And for the Nuggets, I mean, other than Murray, Michael Porter Jr. played well. Nikola Jokic played well. I can't pin this loss on them. Paul Millsap, maybe? Torrey Craig, maybe? Millsap played 18 minutes and only had 5 points. Torrey Craig played 28 minutes. He didn't have any points. I mean, I'll tell you who really impressed me for the Nuggets, and it was kind of nice to see, Mason Plumlee. Even though he didn't get any points, he had 8 rebounds, was making himself known defensively, was doing well against Gobert. I like watching Plumlee play. I always liked him with the Nets. Moving on now to Sixers-Celtics. And remember when I said this is going to be a better series than people thought? Maybe I don't know that much about sports. I mean, they just look invisible out there. They look dead to the world. They are sleepwalking. They don't want to be there. They are not playing well. Joel Embiid can only do so much. At the end of the day, he needs some help. Tobias Harris was 4 for 15 from the field. I understand that Matisse Thybulle isn't expected to do a lot offensively, but if you play 25 minutes and you want to be a starter in this league, you have to score more than 2 points. And Al freaking Horford, 23 minutes off the bench and only 4 points? Really? Just think about it. The Sixers could have had Jimmy Butler. Instead, they chose to bring in Al Horford. Oh man, do I feel for you Sixers fans. Oh God. The one thing I'll say as a little bit of a positive is hopefully this compels Elton Brand to fire Brett Brown. I don't like Brett Brown. I don't think he's a good coach. I understand you had to keep him around because Sam Hinkie didn't try to win. I get that. But he's had a bunch of opportunities to show that he can take a roster to the next level. The Sixers should be a lot better than this. They're not. Brett Brown needs to be held accountable for that. He needs to go. Ben Simmons couldn't be expected to save this by himself, despite him being Ben Simmons. As for the Celtics, they played great. Jason Tatum, 33 points. Jaylen Brown, 20 points. Kemba Walker, 22 points. This is shaping up to be a cakewalk for the Celtics. Look, I said that Kemba Walker was going to need to step up with the absence of Gordon Hayward, and he basically said as much. He did. I give him a ton of credit. I want him to be better from 3. He was only 1 for 6 from beyond the arc, but he was penetrating. He was 8 for 16 from the field. I'll take it. It wouldn't surprise me at all if games 3 and 4 were blowouts in favor of the Celtics. That's how lifeless the Sixers look right now. Moving over now to Mavericks Clippers. And this is what the Mavericks can do when everyone is clicking. I said that if Kristaps Porzingis had played the whole game, the Mavericks would have won it. Some people said to me afterwards, Jacob, you nuts. Well, Porzingis played 36 minutes in this game. He scored 23 points. And the Mavericks won by 13. Yeah, like I said, I know a lot about sports. The Clippers never had the lead in this game. The Mavericks were up by as much as 18. The Clippers would get close. They were down by as little as 2, I think, at one point late in the game, like in the third quarter. But the Mavericks just came storming back. Whenever the Clippers had a little bit of a run, the Mavericks had a run of their own. And to think I've gone this far talking about the Mavericks without talking about their best player, Luka freaking Doncic. He is insane. He scored 70 points in his first 2 playoff games. That's second most in NBA history for any player in his first 2 playoff games. George Mikan had 75. When you need to go back to George Mikan to find an equally dominant performance, you're doing something right. I love watching Doncic play. He's so special. Other than that, Tim Hardaway played well. He's been a really underrated player. Seth Curry was pretty good. Trey Burke took over in the fourth quarter. He had 16 points. That was pretty good. Boban Marjanovic played great in his 10 minutes. 13 points and 9 rebounds. I want him to start. Maxi Kleber was okay. He got 10 rebounds. But I want to see Marjanovic start. You have a starting lineup of Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis, and Boban Marjanovic. I don't care who the other 2 guys are in that starting lineup. That is as great a starting 5 to me as you can possibly get. Just from a pure entertainment standpoint. As for the Clippers, they didn't play bad in this game. The Mavericks were just better. Doc Rivers needs to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to contain Luka. If he keeps doing what he's doing, the Clippers are going to be eliminated, and I'm going to look like an idiot. I picked the Clippers to win the whole thing. Now, I'm not 100% confident in that pick. I have to stick with them, but I'd be lying to you if I said I was 100% confident. One more thing before I move on. If I had to pin this loss on a Clippers player, it would be Paul George. Even though he had a double-double and he was decent defensively, he only shot 4 for 17 from the field, 2 for 10 from beyond the arc. He's got to be better than that. He needs to be the second best player on the Clippers in any given game. Not Lou Williams, not Marcus Morris, not Montrezl Harrell, Paul George. He's got to step up in Game 3. Alright, now it's time to preview today's 4 games. I'll start with Heat Pacers. For the Heat, assuming Victor Oladipo is out, he's a game-time decision as of when I'm recording this, but assuming he doesn't play, the Heat need to exploit that weakness. Victor Oladipo is the Pacers' best defender on the perimeter. Jimmy Butler is going to have a field day without Oladipo guarding him. Same thing with Tyler Hero. Same thing with Duncan Robinson. Same thing with Kendrick Nunn. Same thing with Goran Dragic. The absence of Oladipo changes a lot of things in this series. The Pacers need to give TJ Warren some help, and I was looking at Oladipo to be that guy. Without him, the Pacers are in serious trouble. Assuming he can't play, the Pacers need to hope that TJ Warren can go back to being Bubble Jesus. A guy like Malcolm Brogdon will need to step up. Miles Turner, Domantas Sabonis, Justin Holiday, Aaron Holiday. They all need to pitch in. But that's going to be really, really tough to get all those guys cooking at once. If Oladipo does play, the Pacers are in solid shape. And Jimmy Butler will need to go back to being playoff Jimmy Butler. But if he doesn't play, I don't see how the Pacers can really be competitive in this game. Moving on now to Thunder Rockets. For the Thunder, they have to get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander cooking. Shai is their best player. It's not Chris Paul, it's not Schroeder, it's not Gallinari, it's not Adams. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But on Tuesday, he was abysmal. Only took 8 shots, only had 9 points. That doesn't work for me. And he hasn't been playing that great in the restart. In Orlando, he's only averaging 16.5 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, and 3.5 assists per game. You look at his regular season averages this year in totality, it's 19 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, and 3.3 assists per game. Shai needs to step up. It's just that simple. As for the Rockets, it's pretty obvious. Just keep shooting threes. Keep shooting the lights out. Let James Harden be James Harden. Don't reinvent the wheel. You're a Mike D'Antoni team that's going crazy small ball. Shoot the lights out. Do I need to say any more than that? I feel like I've already said too much, to tell you the truth. To me, it's painfully obvious what the Rockets need to do to win, and I'd be insulting your intelligence if I went any further. Moving on now to Magic Bucks. And look, anything that you do once, you can do again. Make no mistake about it. The Magic have a chance to win this game. You can't discount them anymore. The key for them is to keep up their great perimeter defense. In Game 1, the Bucks only shot 33% from beyond the arc. They are a much better shooting team than that, but the Magic played them great on the perimeter. The Magic also capitalized on their free throw opportunities. They attempted 19 free throws and hit 18 of them. They've got to be great on the perimeter defensively and be aggressive offensively. Get the Bucks into foul trouble. That's how you won Game 1, by hitting your free throws. As for the Bucks, you can't ask Giannis to do any more than he already did. Instead, I'm looking at a guy like Chris Middleton to really step up. Middleton had a garbage game, 4 for 10 from the field, 2 for 6 from beyond the arc. He's got to be better than that. He's the Bucks' second best player. If he has an off game, the Bucks are in trouble. You'd think that they could find someone to pick up the slack. That has happened before, but they couldn't do it in Game 1. I really want the Bucks to get Chris Middleton going early. The last game to talk about is Trailblazers Lakers. For the Trailblazers, it's pretty simple. Just keep doing what you're doing. You slayed Goliath. Like I said, anything that you do once, you can do again. If Damian Lillard keeps being Logo Lillard, and CJ McCollum can keep shooting the lights out, and Yusuf Nurkic can be a really, really, really good, bordering on great interior presence, and Carmelo Anthony has a little bit of a renaissance, the Trailblazers are in good shape. Stick with what got you here. Stick with the Game 1 game plan. I don't think they could do anything else to win. Don't reinvent the wheel. Maybe get Gary Trent cooking a little bit more, but don't go out of your way to do it. As for the Lakers, they have to get their shooters going. No one shot the ball well for the Lakers. LeBron, Anthony Davis, KCP, Danny Green, Kyle Kuzma, Alex Caruso. No one shot the ball well. I want to see pick and fades. I want to see driving dishes. I want to see post-ups where you get the second defender to bite and then you kick it out for a wide-open three. The Lakers need to get their shooters going. They cannot have a repeat of Game 1. That was the worst shooting performance I've ever seen them have. Moving on now to hockey, and this was billed as Elimination Wednesday, and it lived up to its name. There were 4 potential elimination games, and 3 teams got eliminated yesterday. The Blue Jackets, Hurricanes, and Coyotes. I'll start with Blue Jackets Lightning. The Blue Jackets don't have anything to be ashamed of here. They played great. They played this team really tough. The Lightning are a really, really good hockey team. In fact, they're bordering on great. Braden Point dominated this whole series. Nikita Kucherov was great in this series. Victor Hedman went from a question mark to play to being the best defenseman for the Lightning. Vasilevsky was good, bordering on really good. I wouldn't call him great. The Blue Jackets just ran up against a better team. I did pick the Blue Jackets in this series, but that's only because I thought Victor Hedman would be out for an extended period of time. If I knew he was going to play this whole series, I would have picked the Lightning. But like I said, the Blue Jackets have nothing to be ashamed of here. I know that John Tortorella was upset after the loss. It was a tough loss, an overtime loss. He kind of snapped at the press corps a little bit, which Tortorella does. You can't get on him for that. They're set up well for the future. Jonas Korpisalo has proven himself to be a really good goalie in this league. They have some really good hockey players on the team. Dubois, Seth Jones, Zach Werenski, Nick Foligno. I'd like them to add an offensive superstar, but that's easier said than done. One final thing on the Lightning. If Steven Stamkos comes back, they just got a hell of a lot scarier. I don't know if he's going to come back, but if he does, watch out. Moving on now to Hurricanes Bruins. And I was not impressed with how the Hurricanes played in this series. Rod Brind'Amour got out-coached. The Bruins starting goalie, Tuukka Rask, leaves the bubble. I don't care that Yaroslav Halak is the best backup goalie in the NHL. You have to seize on that. From blowing Game 4 to not getting anything going in Game 5. After Hayden Fleury scored, they were dead to the world. I mean, this was a really, really disappointing series for the Hurricanes. You want to tell me they ran up against a better team in the Bruins? I don't think that's true. The absence of Tuukka Rask negates that to me. And plus, the Hurricanes steamrolled the Rangers. The Bruins were garbage in round-robin play. They didn't win a game. They only scored 4 goals. I mean, the Bruins have everyone cooking who they need to have cooking to go on a deep run. But to me, they're a beatable team. I'd much rather face Yaroslav Halak than Carter Hart or Semyon Varlamov. Moving on now to Coyotes Avalanche. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. The Coyotes played like garbage in this series. I understand that they took Game 3, and Game 2 they weren't awful. They actually played pretty well, but Game 1 they were lifeless, Game 4 they were lifeless, and Game 5 they were lifeless. That to me equates to garbage. You cannot lose back-to-back 7-1 games. I know that the Avalanche are great. I've said this before. They're my pick to come out of the West. But you've still got to play better than that. Darcy Kemper folded when the Coyotes really needed him. He's not a money goalie, okay? We know that now. I like the offensive core that the Coyotes have. Guys like Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller and Connor Garland and Christian Dvorak and Phil Kessel and Carl Soderberg. Maybe, just maybe, they can bring back Taylor Hall, although I think that's unlikely. They've got to get better defensively, and they've got to find a better goalie. It's not Darcy Kemper, it's not Antti Ranta, and it's not Aiden Hill. Moving on now to Canadiens Flyers. And remember when I said that both teams needed to support their goalie? Well, they did. When you score 3 goals and Carter Hart is your goalie, you should win that game easily. I mean, the Flyers had a fantastic power play going. 3 for 7. Their setups were great. I hope the Islanders were taking lessons from that. But other than that, the Flyers were dreadful offensively. When you only score power play goals, that doesn't work for me. You've got to score at least one even strength goal. I give the Canadiens a ton of credit. They played with a fire under their ass, as they should. If they lost this game, they were going home. The thing that really surprised me about this game was that the Canadiens were the much more physical team. The Flyers had 28 hits. The Canadiens had 39. They were taking it to the Flyers. Hard. And I commend them for it. They were playing like they had nothing to lose. And that's how you need to play when you're facing elimination. Go all out. Don't hold anything back. As for the Flyers, this was another case of Carter Hart having some bad shrimp. I mean, how do you go from pitching back-to-back shutouts to giving up 4 goals? This is the second game in the series he's done that, giving up 4 goals. Game 2 and Game 5. Is this what Carter Hart is going to do in the playoffs? He's going to play mostly great, but when he's bad, he's dreadful? I can live with that. I just want to know. And going back to the physical side of things, with less than 18 seconds left in the game, the Canadiens and Flyers had a little bit of a brouhaha that I think is going to set the tempo for Game 6. I mean, this was a really violent game. A lot of blood. A lot of big penalties. Jacob Voracek took a double minor. Jesperi Kotkaniemi got a game misconduct. He also got a 5-minute major with that resulted in the Flyers scoring 2 goals. Philip Myers drew blood. Sean Couturier, Jacob Voracek, and Shea Weber were ejected at the end of the game. That was that brouhaha that I was talking about. Brendan Gallagher got high-sticked, but the refs didn't see it somehow. Game 6 is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be must-see TV. I can't wait for it. In the immortal words of Terrell Owens, get your popcorn ready. Moving on now to Canucks Blues. And I give the Canucks a ton of credit. They're down 3-1 against a really hot goalie in Jake Allen, but they keep the pressure up. Allen gives up 3 goals to make it 4-3 Canucks late in the second period, and that was all the scoring there would be. This was a really even game. Best game of the series so far. This is a battle of 2 great coaches, Travis Green and Craig Berube. Whenever you have 2 teams this evenly matched, after games where they weren't evenly matched at all, you've got to look to the coaches. And give Green and Berube a ton of credit. They are 2 of the best coaches in the NHL. Game 6 is going to be really, really fun. Not as fun as Flyers Canadiens, but still really fun. Alright, now it's time to preview tonight's 2 games. Obviously, I'm going to start with Islanders Capitals. For the Islanders, for God's sake, get the power play going. And tighten up defensively. You were doing a good job of containing Alex Ovechkin earlier in this series. He was still getting his, but he wasn't Alexander the Great. Games 1 and 3, he didn't have a goal. I understand the game 2, he had 2 goals, but the Islanders had a great offense that game, and defensively, they didn't allow anyone else to score. Game 4 was really the first bad game that Varlamov has played in this series. He's got to put it behind him. The Islanders are still in the driver's seat. I really think they're going to win tonight. I'm staying calm. I really, really am. But the biggest thing is, the Islanders have to get the power play going. As for the Capitals, Todd Reirden did a really good job of making his team realize that they had to play with some urgency after he took the timeout in Game 4. He has to say exactly what he said there in the locker room before the puck drops tonight. The Capitals need to play with that same sense of urgency that they played with in Game 4. They didn't let the Islanders get anything going. Their forecheck was relentless. I can count on one hand the number of great opportunities the Islanders had to score after Barzal scored the goal to make it 2-0 Islanders. Keep that sense of urgency up. Moving on now to Stars Flames, the series that I have no idea how it's going to go. I still have no idea how it's going to go. Based on history, the Stars are going to be able to get to Cam Talbot. He's had one good game and then one bad game. One good game and then one bad game. He actually played well in Game 5. He only gave up 2 goals. But he still got the loss. Anton Khudobin stood on his head. He needs to keep his great play up. I'm not sold on Khudobin by any stretch, but he played great in Game 5. As for the Flames, if you see Cam Talbot starting to lose it, if you're Jeff Ward, have a quick hook. Pull him for David Rittich. Rittich is not a bad goalie by any stretch. Give him a chance to stop the bleeding. If you see Talbot folding, don't be afraid to go to Rittich. Because Talbot has not impressed me in this postseason. But I gotta tell you, I still have no idea how this series is gonna go. It's gonna be an interesting game to watch, I'll tell you that. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that Eric Hillman was so tall that he didn't have a pickoff move. He just reached out and tagged out the runner.